Welcome to HardScript.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She looked straight at me across the table at Olive Garden, her voice calm but laced with poison. "My legs won't open for you anymore," she said, like she was announcing the weather. The laughter from the next table bled into silence in my head. I didn't say a word. I just leaned back, looked at her glass of cheap Chardonnay, and realized something inside me had gone completely still. People talk about heartbreak like it's fire, but it's not. It's ice. It freezes you right where you sit, makes every second echo in slow motion. Her name's Natalie. We'd been together almost 3 years. Lived in a nice suburban place outside Dallas. I handled most of the bills, the house, the car. I wasn't rich, but I worked hard. Construction management, long hours, the kind of job that leaves your hands rough even if you're the boss. She used to say that's what she loved about me. Said it made me real. But lately, I'd felt her pulling away. More nights out with the girls, more screen time on her iPhone than real talk with me. She'd scroll through Amazon late at night, laugh at something on her phone, turn it face down when I walked by. I didn't press it. I told myself trust meant silence. That night, at Olive Garden, when she dropped that line, something shifted. She said it too easily, like she'd rehearsed it. Maybe she had. I remember just sitting there, letting the words hang in the air. Then I nodded. Calm. Controlled. I didn't ask who she'd been seeing. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't even blink when she smirked, probably expecting me to beg or argue. Instead, I said one thing. "Then my wallet won't open to support you." Her smile cracked. The waitress froze halfway to our table with a tray of breadsticks. I picked up my jacket, left 100 on the table, and walked out. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't pride. It was something colder, like pulling a switch off inside yourself. That night, she texted, "Are you serious? Then we can talk." Then nothing. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove my Ford F-150 down the quiet stretch of highway until the city lights disappeared behind me. I didn't have a plan. I just needed silence. The next morning, I checked my bank app. I moved her off every shared account, cut every auto payment tied to her. Then I called my friend Caleb. He ran a logistics company out in Austin. "Got room for another project manager?" He laughed. "For you? Always." I told him I'd be there in 2 days. By the time she got back from her morning coffee run to Starbucks, the closet was half empty, the house key on the counter, and the air in that kitchen colder than anything she'd ever felt. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just disappeared, not to punish her, but to finally see what life felt like when I stopped being convenient. And that was just the first move. When I left that house, I didn't slam the door. I didn't even look back. The sound of the lock clicking behind me felt cleaner than any goodbye we'd ever said. I drove to a cheap motel just off the interstate, the kind where the neon flickers and the walls hum from the highway. It wasn't about hiding. It was about quiet. I turned off my phone. Not silence mode, off. The kind of off that cuts the world out. No calls, no texts, no explanations. For the first time in years, nobody could reach me. I sat on that stiff motel bed, the smell of detergent and dust in the air, and just breathed. I realized how long it had been since I'd done that without waiting for a message to light up my screen. By evening, I drove again. No destination. Just me, the hum of my Ford F-150, and miles of empty road. I passed the same gas stations and strip malls we used to stop at together. Target, Starbucks, places that had once felt like routine. Now they were just signs. Background noise in a life that didn't belong to me anymore. It's strange how fast people show you who they really are once you stop feeding them what they want. The first day, she texted 23 times. The second day, 2 missed calls and a short message. "I think we need to talk." The third day, silence. That one told me everything. I stayed off the grid for a week. Caleb texted, said he'd set up a spot for me in Austin. Good pay, short-term contract. It sounded like exactly what I needed, something to rebuild myself without anyone watching. But just before I left town, something caught my attention. My buddy Mark called me, voice low like he didn't want to say it. He said he'd seen Natalie having lunch at the same Olive Garden. Only this time she wasn't alone. Some guy from her gym, apparently. He said the way she laughed looked rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself she was fine. I didn't react. I just said thanks and hung up. I didn't even ask for details, because deep down, I already knew. That night, I sat in the truck outside a 24-hour diner, watching the rain streak down the windshield. The waitress inside was closing up, her face tired, her hands steady. She reminded me of what real looked like. That's when I decided. No more begging for love dressed as tolerance. No more half-truths. From now on, I'd be my own silence and my own storm. When I turned the phone back on, there were 37 unread messages. I scrolled through them without opening a single one. Then I deleted them all. That was the moment she lost her grip, and I found mine. I arrived in Austin before sunrise. The city was still half asleep, a mix of headlights, wet streets, and distant music. Caleb met me at a small warehouse he'd converted into an office. He handed me a coffee and said I looked like I'd been through a storm. I told him I wasn't out of it yet. He laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from a man who's already been burned once and learned to live with the scars. Work was simple, and that's what I needed. Long days managing shipments, equipment, and people who didn't care about my past. There was something healing in that, showing up, doing the job, staying invisible. I'd leave late, grab takeout, watch the city from my apartment balcony, and say nothing. Silence had become my new strength. Natalie didn't stop reaching out, though. Every few days, a new message. At first it was guilt, then anger, then pity. You can't just walk away like this. I made a mistake. We can fix it. I never replied. I just watched her words pile up like junk mail I'd never open. But one message stood out. It wasn't from her. It was from my bank. A notification about a charge I didn't recognize. A jewelry purchase from Tiffany & Company. The same card she'd once had access to. My name, her city. She hadn't just kept the man from the gym. She was using the remnants of my trust to impress him. I didn't call her. I didn't freeze the card immediately either. I wanted to see what else she'd try. The next day, another charge, a dinner, then a hotel. It wasn't even about the money. It was the clarity. I'd always wondered what betrayal looked like when it thought it wasn't being watched. Now I knew. So I did what she'd never expect. I smiled. Quietly, privately, coldly. Then I logged in, downloaded every transaction, every timestamp, every name. I forwarded them to my attorney with one line. Proceed with separation. That night, I sat in the truck, parked near Lake Travis, the city lights reflecting off the water. My phone vibrated, her again, but this time, the tone was different. The panic had begun to surface. Why did the rent bounce? Why can't I use the car? We need to talk. I turned the screen face down, took a slow sip of my coffee, and said nothing. I realized I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. The kind that couldn't be crossed, no matter how many times she tried to call my name. That's when I understood. Disappearing isn't about hiding. It's about control. And I'd just taken mine back. 2 weeks passed before the silence started to bother her. I could tell, even from a distance. People talk when they panic, and Natalie's world ran on appearance. She started posting photos again, smiling at rooftop bars, pretending nothing had changed. But the details gave her away. No designer bag, no new outfits, no weekend getaways. The man she'd traded me for wasn't footing her bills, and I had stopped being her safety net. Caleb mentioned once that revenge wasn't about shouting. It was about vanishing so cleanly that the other person ends up talking to their own echo. That stuck with me. I didn't block her number. I wanted her to see that her messages were delivered but unread. The green bubble of her desperation was better than any closure she could have offered. A month into my new job, I settled into a rhythm. Mornings at the site, evenings on my balcony with black coffee, the hum of the city below. Sometimes I catch myself scrolling through old photos of us on my MacBook, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. Every image was proof of who I used to be. Available, predictable, easy to read. That version of me no longer existed. Then one night, a message came in from a number I didn't recognize. Short, sharp. You think you're better than everyone? You ruined her life. No name, but I didn't need one. I knew it was him. The gym guy. I didn't reply. I didn't even save the number. But I did something else. I opened a new browser tab, searched his name, and started connecting dots. His social media, his workplace, the people who followed him. He wasn't as private as he thought. I found what I needed in less than an hour. A series of posts from women complaining about unpaid training sessions, fake coaching plans, and borrowed money. I screenshotted everything and saved it in a folder labeled Proof. It wasn't about exposing him. Not yet. It was about balance. The same way she'd watched me provide. Now I'd watch her new world collapse, without lifting a finger. 2 nights later, she texted again. "Can we meet? Please. I just want to talk." I didn't reply. Instead, I took my truck out to the edge of the city, where the skyline faded into black. The air was colder there, quiet enough to hear my own heartbeat. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. What I felt was something stronger. Detachment. The kind of calm that comes when you finally stop trying to fix what was never broken by accident, but by choice. I didn't answer her message. I let it sit there, glowing on my screen for a full minute before the notification faded away. I wasn't ignoring her out of spite. I was giving her space to hear the silence she'd created, the kind that stretches between words and eats at you slowly. 2 days later, Caleb walked into my office with a half smile. He dropped a folder on my desk, new project contracts, all solid. Then he said, almost casually, "You should see this." He turned his phone toward me. It was a Facebook post from the company where Natalie's new guy worked. A public announcement. Due to ongoing complaints and financial misconduct, we've terminated the employment of our trainer, Jason Miller. I didn't need to read the rest. The dots connected themselves. The screenshots I'd gathered had done their quiet work. No name attached, no drama, no exposure, just truth finding its way through the cracks. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Some victories live in silence. Later that night, as I left the office, I stopped by a small Target near my apartment to grab groceries. The same aisles we used to walk through together now felt unfamiliar, cleaner somehow. There was a calm satisfaction in paying for things with my own card, knowing every cent I spent was mine. No one else's hands had touched it. When I got home, I saw a missed call, then another, then a voice message. I didn't play it right away. I poured myself a drink, sat by the window, and let the quiet fill the room. When I finally hit play, her voice was unsteady. "I know what happened to him," she said. "I know you had something to do with it. Please, just talk to me." She sounded smaller, almost frightened. For a second, I felt something I hadn't in months, pity. But it passed quickly, because I remembered how she'd looked across that table at Olive Garden, how calm she'd been when she told me I was no longer enough. That woman wasn't scared then. She was in control, and I'd let her be. Now the balance had shifted, and she knew it. I turned off the lights and let her words echo in the dark. No reply, no message, no closure. Just the weight of her own choices pressing down, finally, where they belonged. That was the night I stopped being part of her story, and she started realizing she was no longer the author of mine. By the end of that week, her silence had turned into noise again. Messages, missed calls, voice notes I never opened. People who used to ignore me suddenly started reaching out. Her sister texted, saying Natalie wasn't doing well. Her coworker sent a short message. "She's not herself lately. Maybe you should talk to her." I read them all and said nothing. The world was finally seeing the version of her that only I had known, the one that falls apart when attention fades. Meanwhile, my own life was starting to rebuild itself, quietly but steadily. Work was better than ever. Caleb hinted at promoting me to oversee multiple sites. I'd earned his trust without ever asking for it. There was a peace that came with being reliable again, but not for someone, just for myself. I started running every morning before sunrise, passing the same Starbucks she used to love. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd sip her latte and scroll through Amazon while I planned our future. Now I was the one moving forward, and she was stuck refreshing her own past. One evening, as I walked out of the gym, I saw her. She was leaning against her car in the parking lot, eyes red, hands shaking slightly. For a moment, it felt like time stopped. She didn't look like the woman who once called me convenient. She looked lost. When our eyes met, she didn't speak right away. Then she whispered, "You win." I didn't reply. Winning had never been the goal. I just stared for a second, long enough for her to realize that I wasn't angry, wasn't cruel, wasn't waiting. I was just done. She tried again, her voice breaking this time. "Can we just talk? Please." I shook my head once, calm, detached. She stepped closer, desperate, like she was trying to reach through the distance I'd built brick by brick. "I made a mistake," she said. "You know that, right?" I didn't answer. I got in my truck, started the engine, and watched her reflection fade in the rearview mirror as I drove away. That night, as I lay in bed, I didn't feel triumphant or relieved. What I felt was lighter. like I'd finally walked out of a house that had been burning for years. Only I hadn't noticed the smoke until now. That's when it hit me. The strongest kind of power doesn't come from revenge. It comes from absence. From being exactly where they can't reach you anymore. A month passed before I heard her name again. It came from Caleb, of all people. We were grabbing breakfast at a Waffle House before heading to the site when he said, almost carefully, "I saw Natalie last night. She looked rough, man. Real rough." He didn't go into details, and I didn't ask for any. But the image stayed in my head all day. The woman who once measured her worth by who was watching her, now walking through life unseen. That night, I scrolled through social media, not looking for her, but she found me anyway. The algorithm knew before I did. A photo of her sitting alone at a bar, a half-empty glass of wine in front of her, tagged by someone else. No makeup, no smile. Just that distant stare of someone who finally realizes silence doesn't mean peace. It means she's been left behind. I thought about messaging her, just to see if she'd respond. But then I remembered what it felt like to be the one holding on while the other person watched. I wasn't going back there. Not ever again. A week later, she showed up at my job. I was walking out of the warehouse when I saw her standing near the parking lot, her hair pulled back, eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. The sight of her used to hurt. Now it just felt quiet. She started talking the moment she saw me. Her words poured out. Apologies, explanations, confessions. She said she'd been wrong. Said she missed how calm I made her feel, how steady life used to be. Then she said the one thing I didn't expect. "I never realized how safe you made me feel until I lost it." I didn't speak. I let her finish every word, every tear, every attempt to rewrite the past. Then I simply nodded. Not with anger, not with forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. The kind that closes a door without slamming it. When she reached out to touch my arm, I stepped back slightly. It wasn't rejection, it was a reminder. A silent signal that I wasn't the same man she'd once known. I wasn't available, not emotionally, not spiritually, not anymore. That night, she sent one last message. "I don't know how to fix this." I didn't reply, because there was nothing left to fix. She had broken something that couldn't be replaced, and I had found something that couldn't be taken away, my peace. The days that followed felt strangely calm. It wasn't victory, it was detachment. I went to work, came home, kept my routines. The city moved around me, but it all felt distant, like watching life through glass. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up waiting for a message, or for someone else's emotions to dictate mine. The silence that used to haunt me had become a shield. Then one afternoon, Caleb walked into my office holding 2 coffees from Starbucks. He placed one on my desk and said, "You're making waves, man. Everyone's talking about how stable you are. It's like nothing rattles you." I just smiled. Because that was the truth now, nothing did. I had become unreadable, and that's what scared her most. Later that night, I was driving home when I saw her again. It was almost surreal, like the universe testing me. She was sitting outside a diner, the same one we used to stop at after long drives. Alone this time, staring at her phone. She looked up as I slowed at the red light. Our eyes met through the glass, but this time, there was no pull, no ache, no unfinished sentence between us. Just understanding. When I got home, I found a new message waiting. Her tone was different. No more begging, no more anger. Just honesty. She said she wasn't seeing anyone. Said she'd been trying to rebuild her life. Then she said something that lingered. "I finally understand what you meant about respect. I just learned it too late." I read it twice, then set the phone down. There was a time that message would have undone me. Made me think there was still something left to save. But now, it only confirmed what I already knew. Sometimes people have to lose everything to realize what they had. A few nights later, she showed up again, outside my building. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, quiet. I let her talk when she finally found her words. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, just a chance to be seen again. I told her the truth, that I wasn't angry, but I wasn't hers anymore. That the man she left no longer existed, and the one standing in front of her had nothing left to prove. She nodded, tears running down her face, and whispered, "You've changed." And I said, "No, I just stopped waiting to be chosen." Then I walked past her and didn't look back. For the first time, she didn't try to stop me. After that night, she disappeared again, but this time, it wasn't by choice. It was retreat. I could feel it in the quiet, in the absence of her messages, in the stillness of a story that used to revolve around chaos. And somehow, I knew this was the part where the weight of everything she'd done finally landed. A few weeks passed, and life had fallen into rhythm again. Work, gym, late-night drives, the quiet hum of my Ford F-150 cutting through the empty roads. I'd started sleeping better, eating better, thinking clearer. Every part of my life that used to orbit around her had finally found its own gravity. Then one evening, I stopped by that same Olive Garden, the place where it all started. It wasn't intentional. I was meeting Caleb and a few of the guys for dinner. But walking in there again, smelling the same breadsticks, hearing the same background music, it all hit different. The memory of her words, "My legs won't open for you," felt like they belonged to another lifetime. Halfway through dinner, I noticed movement near the entrance. Natalie had walked in, alone. She looked around, then froze when she saw me. For a moment, the noise of the room faded. She hesitated, then took a table at the far end, pretending she hadn't seen me. But her eyes gave her away. I didn't approach her. I didn't have to. Every detail of her body language told the story. Nervous hands, restless glances, the quiet panic of someone who realizes they've become invisible to the one person who used to center their world. When I left, I walked past her table. She looked up, trying to find something in my face. Anger, regret, softness. But I gave her none of that. Just calm acknowledgement, the same kind I'd wanted years ago but never received. That night, she sent me a long message. I didn't need to open it to know what it said. I could already feel the shape of her words, remorse, reflection, the weight of too late realizations. I left it unopened, because the truth was simple. I wasn't running from her anymore. She was chasing the ghost of a man who no longer existed. And the cruelest thing about growth is that by the time they see your worth, you've already outgrown their world. I didn't plan to see her again, but life has a strange way of circling back right when you think it's done with you. It was a Sunday afternoon. The sky was gray, the kind of weather that makes everything feel slower. I had just finished grocery shopping at Target when I saw her outside, standing by her car. She looked smaller somehow, like the world had finally caught up with her. She saw me first. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she walked over, her steps careful, her eyes soft, carrying something between guilt and relief. I didn't say anything. I just watched her stop a few feet away, struggling to find words that could survive in the space between us. She started talking, quietly, carefully. Said she'd been going to therapy. Said she'd cut ties with everyone who reminded her of the mess she'd made. She wasn't asking for anything this time. She just wanted to tell me she finally understood. She said, "You were the only one who ever stayed solid." I broke that, and I've been trying to rebuild myself ever since. I listened, not out of pity, but respect. For the first time, she wasn't trying to rewrite the past. She was facing it. There was honesty in her voice now, not manipulation. And maybe that's why, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to walk away. We stood there in silence for a while. Cars moved around us. People passed by with their carts. Life kept happening. And in that stillness, something settled. The war was over. I told her I didn't hate her, that I never did. I said what we had wasn't all lies. It was just unfinished. It broke because neither of us knew how to hold it right. She nodded, tears welling up, and said she never expected forgiveness. She just wanted peace. So I gave her that. A small, quiet nod. No promises, no second chances, just a signal. That I'd let go of the anger. That she could stop running from the past. When I drove away, I didn't feel heavy. I felt clear. The kind of calm that only comes when you've survived yourself. She needed to lose everything to understand what love truly was. And I needed to lose her to understand what respect really means. This wasn't reconciliation for her. It was reclamation for me. I didn't return to the man I was before her. I became the man I should have been all along. Unshaken, self-contained, and finally free. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.